Okay, Year 12, welcome to your video tutorial on examples of successful and non-successful design. If we look at the syllabus, we are on H1.1. We have already gone through the factors that affect design. Today, we're going to look at examples of success and failure in design and what leads to successful design, or in the case, a design to fail. So successful designs are pretty straightforward. If a design is successful, it is made for an intended purpose or need. So there is an actual need for it and there is a purpose behind what it does. Most of the time, a design is successful because it employs new and emerging types of technology. And the third thing that makes a successful design is that it's financially attainable for the intended target market. So as you would know with your MDPs, you've done a lot of research. Just as you do research, companies do lots of research into their target market, into new and emerging technology, into the need, and they do a whole lot of costing analysis. So as part of the design process, there's a lot of what we call research and development. And if that research and development is done properly, and there is actually a need for their design, and they make it in a way and using processes that result in them being able to actually sell it and their intended market being financially able to purchase or being within an economic situation where they're able to purchase their product, that usually leads to successful design. I suppose the opposite end of that is non-successful design, or when designs fail, is when they actually don't do that appropriate research. So, insufficient target market research means that they usually aren't meeting the need, or they usually aren't meeting the purpose. So, there's an assumption that the market needs this, but you don't engage with the correct stakeholders. So, you don't actually find out the wants and needs of your target market. If you don't engage with them, usually what happens is that your particular product doesn't actually meet the need of what your market actually needs or wants, which in turn results in it not being so very successful. The other, and I don't know why this is on two separate dot points, so let me just fix that up for you. The other important, I suppose, point is the insufficient testing during the product development phase. So if your product doesn't actually do what it is intended to do, a lot of the time that can be the result of insufficient testing during the development phase. And what would happen a lot of the time with certain products is that, and you probably would have seen this before, is that the product actually legally is required to be recalled from the market. So there's a big product recall. And thirdly, the last thing that really resonates with a design failure or non-successful design is a lack of a suitable target market. So if there's not actually a market for your design, what happens is that your design often becomes non-successful or a failure. Now, I did want to make one point about the financially attainable and it leading to successful design. There are some really important examples of where a product is actually rather expensive and its upkeep is rather expensive, but it is still successful. One of the best examples of that is the iPhone. So the iPhone is an expensive product to buy. It's also a very expensive product to upkeep. However, it is still seen as, a successful design because there is a perceived need for it. So there is a need perceived by society that having an iPhone is important. It's actually, and we can look at Apple as an example of, really savvy design. What Apple did with the iPhone, they made it into a designer product. So it was more than just a phone. It had more than just a function. It became a sign of, social class. And we're going to look at trends later today as well. So when there is a perceived need for something, and when there's very savvy marketing and there's very savvy, branding on behalf of a designer or of a business with a design, that financial financially attainable. For a lot of people, the iPhone, at $1,200 for, some of their basic examples is not really financially attainable, but people will still pay for it because there is a perceived need for that product. So successful designs are usually this. Design failure is usually the result of this, but there is an exception where there is a perceived need, or society deems it valuable. Some examples of really successful design where we talked about were the iPhone. The Dyson hand dryer is a really interesting one. So is the NutriBullet and the KitchenAid mixer. All of these are very interesting designs, and they are successful because there is a perceived need or purpose. They employ new and emerging tech. And while they are rather expensive for some of them, there is a perceived need, or they fill a gap in the market that previously wasn't there. Non-successful design examples are listed. The Segway is a really good example, and part of your textbook actually goes through the Segway. The iTop wearable DVD player is a really good example of a non-successful design. So is the Macintosh TV. And that's it, Year 12. That is successful and non-successful design.